What's up guys, my name is Michael and welcome to my channel. In this channel we're going to explore the countercultural issues that have infiltrated the church, and today we're going to start strong. We're going to start with the Enneagram. Here we go. First video and I'm already pushing buttons. Roll the intro. What's up guys, like I said, my name is Michael and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Enneagram and how I believe that if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be messing around with this stuff. And I'm not going to give you the root definition of this thing. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all that, but you probably heard about the Enneagram. And if you haven't, here is what it looks like. It's essentially a 9-point graphic with each peak pointing to a number associated with a personality type. So let's talk about this, but first things first. Why am I talking about this? You see, the Enneagram has taken the modern Christian church by a storm, and as such, I can't ignore it. I have to talk about it, especially after doing so much research on it. So this is the video that will talk about all the research that I'm finding and why I believe this is problematic for the church. You see, just like any fad, the Enneagram has a very, very specific thing that is very, very attractive to a lot of people. What is that? It is the self-help aspect of it. And if you don't think that self-help things are not attractive to people, the self-help industry, it's a $9 billion industry a year. So there's clearly a serious amount of money pushed out the door for these things. So why is this a problem for the church? Well, because the origins of the Enneagram and what the Enneagram originally is and where it came from are very problematic. So let's dive right into it. But before we do, I wanna make something clear. If you subscribe to the Enneagram, if you're a believer and you're watching this video, heck, if you're one of my friends and you subscribe to the Enneagram and you're watching this video, stick around. Just give me a few minutes of your time to elaborate my point, because I believe that this information will change your mind on whether or not you should be using the Enneagram and why that is. So where did the Enneagram come from anyways? Now, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, you probably heard of its ancient origins, but the reality of things is that it's not ancient at all. In fact, I have some really good Christian Bible-believing solid friends that subscribe to it that told me that, like, oh hey, like it's got Jewish ancient roots. Okay, well, just because something has Jewish ancient roots doesn't make it good or doesn't make it Christian or makes it biblically allowed or accurate, right? So like the Kabbalah, it comes from Jewish mysticism. Do we practice the Kabbalah? No. The Metatron comes from Jewish mysticism. Do we worship the Metatron? No, but the Kabbalah and the Metatron are probably a topic for another video, but you get my point. In fact, the Enneagram is not ancient at all. It came about in the early 1900s, pushed by this guy named George Gurdjieff. I'm probably butchering his name, but here's what it looked like. It was presented as a theory of enlightenment and a cosmic vision by this guy. George believed that the Enneagram was a tool that you can actually observe the universe through. But when you think about the Enneagram in the church, you don't think about George Gurdjieff. That's too far-fetched. Like this whole theory of enlightenment, a window to cosmic reality, that would not fly in the Christian church, right? So who do we have to thank for this? We have to thank a fellow by the name Richard Rohr. So who is Richard Rohr and how this all came about? Richard Rohr is an American Franciscan progressive priest, and that is your red flag right there. Priest, progressive, it's like a word salad of things that we as Christians shouldn't subscribe to. Richard teaches New Age practices at his school. I think it's called the Center of something or other action for contemplation. It's in New Mexico, if that tells you anything. Anyways, this is the fellow that introduced the Enneagram to the Christian church. He introduced it by a book that he wrote. I believe it's called The Enneagram, A Christian Perspective. But here's the problem. How could a man who does not profess the doctrines of the Christian faith offer a Christian perspective on something? He's not a Christian at all. How could he be offering a Christian perspective on something? But that's how the Enneagram was introduced to the church, essentially. But at this point, you may be thinking, but Michael, come on, there's no checks and balances. You're telling me like nobody looked into this before they jumped in the bandwagon and like, I don't know, Christian publishers started pushing it. Which is why we gotta talk about the next question, which is, how did it get in the church? So let's take a look at this. This is a brief history of how the Enneagram became a tool for metaphysical mumbo jumbo to a tool to edify Christians in the modern church. But for that, we need to head over to the whiteboard. Let's go. All right, so now that we're here, let's take a look at this. In the year 1916, George Goodriff's disciples wrote about Goodriff's works and the development of the Enneagram as a metaphysical tool to see the universe through. Around the 1960s, a man by the name Oscar Ichazo from Chile started teaching Goodriff's theory with the Enneagram in his school for the occult. Oscar Ichazo decided to teach the Enneagram as a picture of ego fixations. Instead of a window to the universe, he made each of the 9 points one of the ego fixations of mankind, essentially teaching that if you can determine your ego fixations, you can seek within to eliminate them and become your true essence. One of Ichazo's students by the name of Claudio Naranjo moved to a town in California named Esalen in the 70s, which is a weird little town in Big Sur with lots of New Age shops and spiritual centers, kind of like Sedona nowadays. Claudio Naranjo was the guy who introduced the personality types to the Enneagram. How did he come up with that? Automatic writing. What is automatic writing? Automatic writing is an occult practice which consists of contacting spirits and letting them channel their knowledge through you and conveying that knowledge by writing. So in short, you let a spirit possess you while you have a pen and paper handy. Now, Claudio Naranjo had his own students. One of them was Bob Oakes, who was a Jesuit priest. Bob was allowed by Claudio to teach the Enneagram at a Catholic seminar in Chicago. This was never approved or endorsed by the Catholic Church, but somewhere along the way, this thing was taught at retreats and private events, and it found its way into the hands of a woman named Helen Palmer, who was a New Age teacher at the time. Helen introduced the teachings of the Enneagram to the New Age community in the United States, ultimately making its way to our dude Richard Rohr. Enter the Road Back to You. Now, you've probably heard about this. The Road Back to You is a really popular book by authors Ian Morgan Cron and Suzanne Stabile. Ian Morgan Cron is a progressive Christian and follower of Richard Rohr. Susan Stabile was one of Richard Rohr's mentees for many years. Both of them have spoken and taught at Richard Rohr's Center in New Mexico. Both writers held the title of Christian writers, ultimately leading to The Road Back to You being the first Enneagram book published by an evangelical publisher. Now, this opened the door for other pseudo-Christian authors to seek Christian publishing houses to get their work on the Enneagram out there, like Christopher Hurt's book, The Sacred Enneagram, published by Zondervan. Chris Hurt was also mentored by Richard Rohr. Okay, so whatever, I don't care where it came from, it helped me, so... Okay, here's the problem. We are God's creation and we live under His authority. Anything that is designed to take the attention away from God and who God designed us to be and God's design for our lives and turns that attention into ourselves and away from God should be, at best, carefully examined, if not discarded immediately. The Enneagram promised to reveal to you your true essence. That by looking at this points that link to some kind of personality trait that you'll be able to better understand yourself and better relate to others. But how is this different to the zodiac signs or, astrology? How many times have you heard somebody say, "Oh, I'm a Virgo, I can't definitely hang out with you. We would, we get along. We won't get along." You're determining your whole life path and the opportunities that you would have to share the gospel with others based on some simple numbers that if you do any digging and you find other people teaching this stuff, you will find that each point means something different in somebody else's Enneagram. So they're all different. And I promise you that if you look into it deeply, you will find something that you can relate to in any of the points, and you can build some kind of personality trait from each of them, and you will miss out on the person that God designed you to be. The Word of God tells us that our heart is deceitful, that is sick, that is desperately evil. And our only hope is to have that heart ravaged and redeemed by our Creator, to receive the gospel and to balance all that against a perfect God. Not some random numbers in some 9-point chart. So I want to leave you with this question. As a Christian, how do you reconcile taking an object or a system that came from occult practices to try to use it to formulate your identity? Instead, why not turn to Scripture and learn what God says that you are? Why not turn to God? Why not relate to others in different ways? Why not meet others where they are? What do you think would happen to the church if Paul had found all these people who he didn't disagree with theologically or culturally and said, oh, you know what? You're not my type of person. We're gonna not get along. So bye. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you liked it, please take a moment to subscribe, ring the notification bell so you know when the next video goes up. But for now, this is it. You're awesome, and I can't wait to see you on the next video. Bye.